Welcome to Beyond Prompts, the new way to use ChatGPT. For a long time, ChatGPT was mainly used as a writing assistant. You would open it to draft an email, generate an idea, or clean up some text, and then move on. With ChatGPT 5, that role has changed in a much more fundamental way. The biggest difference is not just better writing or faster responses. ChatGPT can now reason through problems, keep track of longer conversations, and work with ideas over time instead of treating each request as a separate task. This means it is no longer limited to producing pieces of content. It can now help shape the thinking behind what you are building. Instead of jumping between notes, documents, and half-finished plans, ChatGPT can be used as a central place to think things through. You can start with a rough idea, explore different directions, and gradually turn it into something clear and usable. When you come back later, the context is still there, so you don't have to start over each time. This changes how work gets done. You no longer have to figure everything out before you begin. You can use ChatGPT to think, plan, create, and organize as you go. It becomes less about asking for answers and more about working through ideas, which makes everything feel more connected and easier to manage. When you open ChatGPT with a vague idea and a vague request, you're usually just hoping something useful comes out, and that's why the results feel hit or miss. A much better way to use it is to start with a simple pattern that works for almost anything you want to think through, plan, or create. It begins with describing the outcome you want, not the words you want written. Instead of saying, "Write me a post" or "Make me a plan," you start by explaining what you want to end up with and what it needs to do. Who's it for? Where will it be used? What should change after it exists? This immediately gives the conversation direction. Next, you give it the context it needs, whether that's your rough idea, your constraints, your audience, or what you already have. This turns ChatGPT into a thinking partner instead of a slot machine. Then you ask it to design the structure before filling in the details. That could be an outline, a plan, a sequence of steps, or a few different approaches to compare. Once the shape is right, you can use it to build, refine, simplify, or expand each part without losing the big picture. This same flow works for almost everything, from planning a project or thinking through a decision to turning a messy idea into something clear. It helps you organize notes, design content, shape an offer, and even determine your next step. The real shift is that you stop using ChatGPT as a place to get output and start using it as a place to think. Instead of starting from a blank page, you start from a clear outcome, add context, shape the structure, and build from there. Once this becomes your default way of starting, everything feels easier to continue. The result is fewer restarts, less mental clutter, and steadier progress since you always know exactly how to begin. Most people think of ChatGPT as something they open when they are stuck or when they need a quick answer. They use it like a tool they occasionally reach for. That is helpful, but it is also a very small way to think about what it can actually become in your business. This is not about prompts. It is about turning ChatGPT into the place where your work actually happens. When you use it this way, ChatGPT becomes the workspace where ideas are shaped, where projects are planned, and where real assets are built. Instead of ideas, notes, and drafts living in different places, you bring everything into one environment where it can grow together. This changes how you start work. Instead of opening ChatGPT only when you're stuck, you open it at the beginning. You start your projects there, thinking, outlining, and building. And it becomes the first step, not the emergency backup. The reason this is so powerful is that context compounds. The more you work inside the same environment, the more continuity you build. Your projects begin to fit together, your thinking becomes more consistent, and you stop re-explaining and start actually moving things forward. As that context builds, everything starts moving faster and planning gets easier. Planning takes less effort, and writing and structuring take less time. Decisions get easier because you can see the whole picture instead of working in fragments. Over time, this changes your entire pace of execution. You stop feeling like you're constantly starting over, and you start feeling like you are working inside a living system that already knows what you're building and why. Used this way, ChatGPT stops being just another tool in your stack and starts becoming the engine that everything else runs through. Not because it replaces your thinking, but because it gives your thinking a consistent place to live, grow, and turn into real business assets. A lot of the friction people experience with ChatGPT comes from the way they approach the work. They think in prompts, break everything into tiny steps, and try to control every part of the process as it unfolds. While this can work, it is slow, mentally draining, and keeps you stuck micromanaging instead of actually building. This isn't about finding better prompts, it's about changing how you define the work in the first place. The old approach is step-by-step prompting, where you decide the structure and order up front and tell ChatGPT exactly what to do at each stage. Over time, this turns into long chains of instructions, constant revisions, and a feeling that you are doing more directing than creating. The outcome-first workflow reverses that dynamic. Instead of starting with how to do something, you start by clearly describing what you want to end up with. You define the outcome, the constraints, and what finished looks like, and then you allow ChatGPT to design the path to get there. Working this way lets the system propose the structure, outline the steps, and identify the components needed to reach the goal. You're no longer responsible for managing every detail of execution. You're setting direction and making decisions. This creates an important shift in how you work, moving your role away from task management and toward judgment and refinement. Instead of pushing each step forward manually, you evaluate, adjust, and approve what is being built. The practical result is less resistance and faster progress. Planning becomes smoother, execution becomes more efficient, and decisions feel easier because everything stays anchored to a clear outcome. You spend less time wrestling with the process and more time shaping something useful. When you think in outcomes instead of prompts, ChatGPT stops feeling like a tool and starts feeling like a system that builds alongside you. That is when it becomes a real multiplier instead of just a smarter way to write text. Guessing is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make in business. When you guess, you build things based on what you think people want, and then you hope the market agrees. Sometimes it does, but a lot of the time it doesn't. This is not about collecting data or running surveys. It is about exploring a market before you build anything. With tools like ChatGPT, you can simulate different types of people and have real, useful conversations before you ever write a page or create a product. You can step into the perspective of a skeptical buyer, a complete beginner, or a frustrated customer and see how they react to an idea, an offer, or a promise. When you do this, you're not looking for opinions, you're looking for patterns. You start to uncover the real objections, the questions that keep coming up, the triggers that matter, and the deal breakers that stop people from buying. This kind of exploration changes how you write and how you build. Instead of guessing at what to say, you start using the language your market is already using. The real benefit is speed and clarity, letting you test angles, ideas, and positioning in minutes instead of spending weeks building something that might miss the mark. You get to see where people hesitate, what they care about, and what they ignore, before any real money or time is on the line. When you use this approach, market research stops being a slow, formal process and starts becoming a practical thinking tool. You're not replacing real customers. You're reducing risk by thinking things through in a more structured and realistic way before you commit. The end result is simple. You build better offers, write better copy, and make better decisions because you explore first and build second instead of guessing. It's easy to start building before you've decided what you're really building or who it's for. You build the product, write the content, or design the page, and only then stop to wonder if anyone actually wants what you made. A much easier path is to figure out the angle, the audience, and the positioning before you build anything at all. This is where ChatGPT becomes a thinking partner instead of just a writing tool. You start with a rough idea, not a polished plan. You describe who you want to help and what kind of problem you think they have. From there, you can use ChatGPT to help you explore what that person actually cares about, what they are trying to fix in their life or business, and what usually stops them from taking action. In a few minutes, you can uncover the real motivations and objections that normally take weeks to figure out through trial and error. Once that's clear, you can explore different ways to position the same idea. One angle might focus on saving time, another on making money, and another on making things simpler and less stressful. You can walk through each angle, see who it fits best, what it promises, and where it might fall flat. This makes it much easier to choose a direction that feels both useful and believable. From there, you can shape the offer itself. You can think through what actually needs to be included, what can be left out, and what the simplest helpful version looks like. Instead of making something bigger and more complicated, you end up making something clearer and more focused. The real shift is this: you stop building and hoping, you start thinking first, then building with intention. That means fewer wasted projects, fewer half-finished ideas, and a much better chance that what you create actually connects with the people it is meant for. A hidden cost in business that hurts more than most people realize is hesitation. Ideas sit in your head, half-built and half-tested, while you try to think through every possible outcome. By the time you finally decide what to do, the energy is gone or the opportunity has passed. This is not about getting opinions or collecting advice. It is about pressure testing ideas before you commit real time and real effort to them. With ChatGPT, you can take something you are thinking about building and stress test it before you touch any tools or write any pages. You give it your idea, your audience, and your goal, and then you let it help you find the weak spots, the simpler versions, and the angles you might be missing. For example, you can ask, "Here is the idea I'm thinking about turning into a product, describe it." The audience is describe them. The outcome I want is describe the result. Tell me why someone might not buy this, what the simplest version of this could be, and what angles or approaches I might be overlooking. From there, you can keep refining by asking things like, what would make this clearer? What would make this easier to explain? Or what would make this feel more useful or more urgent to the buyer? This is not about certainty, it is about getting clear enough to move forward. This process narrows your options very quickly. Instead of 10 vague directions, you end up with 1 or 2 that actually make sense. That alone removes a huge amount of decision paralysis. The result is simple and practical, clearer direction, fewer dead ends, and faster execution because the uncertainty is gone. Over time, this creates a new rhythm in your business. You think, you pressure test, you decide, and you move. Less overthinking, less stalling, and far more consistent progress. Chasing posts is one of the easiest ways to stay busy without building anything that lasts. You publish something, it gets a little attention, and then it disappears under the next wave of content. That cycle never really compounds because this is not about social media. It's about creating things that keep working long after you publish them. With tools like ChatGPT, you can create real traffic assets instead of just more posts. That includes SEO articles that keep bringing in visitors and YouTube scripts that continue to get discovered. It also includes comparison posts that catch people close to buying and tutorials that solve specific problems and stay useful for years. The real multiplier move is learning how to turn one good topic into many useful assets. A single idea can become a checklist, a short video, a lead magnet, a longer article, or part of a bigger guide. Instead of constantly looking for new ideas, you start building depth and coverage around the ones that already work. When you think this way, the whole game changes. One idea turns into many assets, and those assets work together to create ongoing traffic instead of one-time spikes. This also changes how you measure effort. You're no longer asking, what should I post today? You're asking, what asset should I build that will still be working for me months or years from now? Over time, this creates a completely different kind of momentum. Instead of needing to show up every day just to stay visible, you build a library of useful, discoverable content that keeps bringing new people into your world automatically. When you focus on assets instead of posts, your content stops needing constant feeding and starts quietly working in the background long after the work is done. A surprising amount of momentum gets lost at the design stage. For a lot of people, this is where things start to feel uncertain. They're not sure what to create, which direction to go, or which tool to use. So projects get paused, outsourced, or put off for later. Nothing is wrong. It's just an easy place to get stuck. AI changes this by removing the blank canvas problem and giving you something concrete to work with right away. With modern tools, you can create the visuals you actually need for your business, like ebook covers, banners, mockups, and social images. They don't have to be perfect, they just need to look clean and professional enough to use in your pages, emails, and promotions. You don't need to know design rules or layout principles. You just describe what you want and let the system handle the starting point. For example, You can ask something as simple as this. Create a professional and visually pleasing promo graphic for insert product name here, size 1080 by 1080, with a clean, modern style and clear headline text. Or create a clean, professional ebook cover for insert product name here in a modern style with a clear title, strong visual focus, and a layout that looks good as a product mockup. Instead of guessing your way to something usable, you get a real starting point immediately. If it's close but not quite right, you don't have to start over. You refine it the same way you'd give feedback to a designer, by asking for bigger text, a simpler layout, or a cleaner, more premium look, and the changes happen right away. The point is to end up with something you're comfortable using in your product and your marketing without getting stuck or overthinking the process. When visuals stop feeling like a question mark, pages get finished, offers get launched, and ideas stop dying in the "I still need to do the design" stage. Design becomes a simple, manageable step instead of a blocker. A lot of content gets created every day that can never be sold. It might be helpful, interesting, or even get attention, but it stays stuck as content because it was never designed to become a product. This is not about building big courses or massive programs. It is about taking small, specific ideas and turning them into small, useful products. Everything starts with a problem. Someone is stuck, confused, or trying to get one specific result, and instead of jumping straight to "write this," you start by thinking the problem through with ChatGPT. You describe the situation, the person, and the outcome you want, and ask it to help explore the problem and design the simplest solution that could become a small digital product. From there, ChatGPT becomes the place where the idea gets shaped. You use it to test different angles, simplify the structure, and choose the right format, using it as a thinking and design space instead of a typing tool. Once the shape is right, use ChatGPT to refine it by removing what isn't needed, tightening the flow, and making sure it stays clear and focused. Then you use ChatGPT to help package it by sharpening the positioning, writing a clear description of who it is for and what it solves, and mapping the most natural next step. Because ChatGPT can hold the whole project in context, these products stop taking months to build and become fast, focused assets you can create and improve quickly. Over time, this changes how you look at ideas. Instead of asking, "What should I post?" you start asking, "What small problem can I turn into a small product?" If you're finding these tutorials valuable and you're serious about integrating AI and automation into your business to save time and build scalable systems, I invite you to join our free school community. This isn't a place for hype or unrealistic promises. Instead, it's a focused environment where we continue the conversation, share practical workflows, and troubleshoot real-world AI implementation challenges together. Inside, you'll find extended discussions on the AI tools and automation strategies we cover here on the channel, exclusive mini tutorials and workflow breakdowns that go even deeper, a supportive network of fellow entrepreneurs, freelancers, and creators who are actively building with AI, opportunities to ask questions directly and get feedback on your own automation projects. It's a space dedicated to continuous learning and practical application, helping you move from understanding concepts to implementing effective AI solutions in your day-to-day operations. To join, simply click the link in the description below. I'm looking forward to connecting with you there and helping you further streamline your work and build real leverage with AI.